It won't be long and gardeners alike will be flocking to the garden centers purchasing their bedding plants for their flower gardens, and there's nothing more attractive than adding a little bit of color to the landscape and garden. Well, to assist in figuring up the appropriate number of plants that you would need for your bedding plants and the spacing, I want to share with you a very informative guideline developed by the National Gardening Bureau. And first of all, you need to determine the square footage of your planting area. And the best way to do that is just take the length times the width. And of course, a lot of our planting areas are not a true square, so you may have an oval shape or something that's oblong, but just try to imagine a square and just guesstimate as best you can the square footage. Now again, you may have to do that in blocks and add them together to come up with the appropriate number, but just multiply the width times the length to get your square footage. Once that's done and you know your square footage, you can use this particular chart to figure the exact number of plants that you would need. Now to do that though, you need to know the recommended spacing of the plants that you're buying. For example, if you have a 6-inch spacing between your plants, you would need 4 plants per square foot. 8 inches would be 2.25, 10 inches almost 1.5 plants per square foot, 12 inches obviously 1 plant, 18-inch spacing would be 0.44, and 24-inch spacing would be 0.25. And the way that you would figure that up, say for example you had a 125 square foot garden spot you needed to put annuals in, and the recommended spacing was 10 per square foot, then what you would do is multiply 10 by 125 and you come up with 180 plants. Now it's always a good idea to buy a few extras just in case some die from wind damage or animal damage, or possibly there's some disease or insects that attack them right off the bat. And that way you'll have a few extras that you can stick in case you run short. But I think the biggest problem that people get into is that they overcrowd their bedding plants, just like we do have a tendency to do with our woody ornamentals and our trees. And like many plants, they look very lonely when they're sitting out there by themselves after we put them in with that appropriate spacing. But let me show you some slides of before and after pictures that we've used here at Studio Gardens with plants to show you that they will fill in. You just have to have a little patience. And here in front of our deck we use some wax leaf begonias, some of the bronze leaf cultivars. You can see the earlier pictures, they look awfully lonely there, but later in the season they fill together and looks real nice. Another one of our ground beds, we used firebush and begonias. Again, before they look very sparse, but later in the season we almost have them too close. And then we had another bed with a yellow-orange color scheme with petunias, lantana, and cannas, and again they filled in very nicely as the season progressed. It's also important to remember to select the right plants for the right location. Annuals have certain preferences. It might be sun, partial shade, full shade, wet or dry conditions, and don't forget to make sure that you keep those things in mind because we can get in trouble from planting them in the wrong site right off the bat. Also, when you're transplanting, it's a good idea to try to do that as early in the morning as you possibly can. The second best time would be late in the evening, and then on a cloudy day would be another great option. If you do it in the middle of the day with a lot of bright sunlight, they have a tendency to just transpire quite a bit and it will wilt them down, and especially on days with our windy conditions. Now, if you don't have the option to pick the right condition to plant them, you may need to go in and possibly cover them with containers, put up a windbreak, or maybe some shade cloth for about 24 hours to help them adjust before they are exposed to the hot sun. And again, the wind is very crucial in causing plants to dehydrate and not get established appropriately. And once they're planted, just like you would do with vegetables, put a little bit of a starter solution around them. Try to keep it off the foliage, especially if you're watering and planting late in the evening, because that moisture would stay on the foliage all night long and could possibly encourage some disease. And before you ever get to the point of planting, bed preparation, soil preparation is crucial. They like a lot of organic matter, a lot of good loose soil, and that should be done even during the winter time if you can get that accomplished. Once the plants are growing, it's a good idea to fertilize them, do the soil test, and then if you have to go in and deadhead, which is cut out the dead flowers to rejuvenate growth or trim them back, sometimes it's good to come back and either use another water-soluble solution or side dress them with a fertilizer to help put out a new flush of growth. Mulching is very crucial. One of the things that we like to use around our annuals is cottonseed hulls because at the end of the year we can just till them in. They allow good moisture and air circulation as well. And some people ask, well, can they use weed barriers while mulching? Well, really, weed barriers are probably more preferred to use around woody ornamentals, those types of things, because our spacing on annuals most of the time are so close that you really would need to invest the expense in a weed barrier. Now, woodier type annuals like lantana would probably be okay where your spacing is further apart. It takes them longer to grow in to shade the weeds. But the weed barrier would really be optional, but I would definitely encourage you to use something that allows drainage and oxygen movement. Well, while we're talking about annuals, let me give you some of my recommended favorite annuals that are absolutely perfect for hot, dry summers in Oklahoma, and they've performed well for us the past 3 years here at our studio gardens. Now, this listing again is annuals for full sun. One of them is firebush. I think when you go to the garden centers and see it initially, it's very small and it looks kind of sick. But boy, once you get it outside and it starts growing, it becomes woody. It's attractive foliage. The flowers aren't very showy, but the hotter it gets, the drier it gets, the bigger and better they perform. And they are grown as an annual here in Oklahoma and won't overwinter. But brilliant color, nice texture, contrast for a lot of other flowers. Begonias surprisingly do quite well in our full sun areas, especially the bronzeleaf cultivars. They have red, pink, and white blossoms. Again, very nice for a border plant. An alternative to the traditional zinnia is Zinnia angustifolia, the linearius or creeping zinnia. Smaller flower, but again self-cleaning, a little bit of trimming, either yellow, pink, orange, yellow flowers, and they're not very prone to powdery mildew, which a lot of our other zinnias are, which is a nice alternative. Now, probably one of our favorites that has a wide range of cultivars and colors are the lantana plants. Again, these are annuals. They're very aggressive the hotter and drier it gets. Nice flowers, pretty much self-cleaning. Every now and then you'll have to trim out some seed pods or trim them back, but a great choice for hot summer conditions. Also, starflower or penta, pink, purplish, reddish color flower or white. Again, they're very aggressive and like the hot sun. They'll get a little bit of height, so they're good for the backside or the taller locations of your annual beds. We've also had good success with globe amaranth, which is used often for cut flower. It dries nicely, again very aggressive. It gets a lot of height on it, takes severe trimming, and then will dry nicely for your cut flowers. But the color range is phenomenal, from pastels to pinks to harsher colors, a nice choice. Now, if you like to have more formal approach where you can shear some plants, Joseph's coat is another good choice. Lots of designs can be made with them, various choices in colors, variegation. And lastly, another one is copperleaf. Good choice for foliage, again, not much on the showy flowers, but likes the hot sun. So I encourage you to go by your garden centers and see what's out there this year, but these are some of our favorites here at Oklahoma Gardening.